Well, thank you very much. Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming along. There's a lot of you here today. This lunchtime for this conference, or this round table rather, on the theme of the future of places for broadcasting and content of immersive entertaining commons. So we're going to look at the different issues. Why was this question raised today? Why is it still an issue? And particularly because today there is a question about the future of virtual reality or even immersive places. With professionals, it is happening, but for individuals, the question is still there. There are some headsets are now being sold, but there is still the question about virtual reality and the future. Now, for places where there is immersive entertainment in the 1980s, if we want to go back a little bit in time, a little bit of history, during the 1980s there were already headsets that existed, which were in certain theatres, notably abroad. There weren't any in France, but you could find them in the US. Well, there were some that were exhibited, which were tested, but you can see that over the past 3 years there's been a big sort of rush in LBE, location-based entertainment, and particularly with a company that people talked about a lot, which was The Void. I don't know if you heard about it. The principle of The Void was a sort of escape game in virtual reality, and you're totally immersed in a room, so it's 4D if you like, because there's a whole system of installation where you can, there's smoke coming out, and you've got this environment which interacts in virtual reality with you. And The Void was talked about a lot. They were the first to take positioning on this, and there's one in particular because they had a partnership that was much noted with films like Ghostbusters and Star Wars. So today they're developing more and more. Their partnership with Disney gives a lot of opportunity to. Now, if you're here, you've come to this round table on immersive entertainment content and distribution. Potentially it's something that can be of interest to you for your business today. And today there are several questions which arise. There is immersive content, or if you want to create content for this type of place. So people who want to create this sort of space, the question is on the technology that arises. If I look at the example of The Void, the difficulty is that they didn't use a technological system which existed already, you know, in Survive, Oculus Rift, or whatever. They totally created something from scratch, so millions of dollars in R&D, and today something like The Void, we're looking at 1 to 1.5 million if you want to buy that sort of license. Because those are the figures that are going around. I'm not really sure whether it's possible to buy it as such. There will be perhaps some answers here today, but there is a real question on feasibility today with the development of this sort of virtual reality headset and HTC 5. You can have experiences for immersive areas. There is a question as well on the price and as well the interest. You know, who's going to be interested in this sort of thing? Who would be the target for this type of content? That's one of the points we're going to be talking about today. We're talking about B2C, B2B, or even both. And we'll see that our speakers have got approaches which could be different or convergent on these points. So the speakers with us today to talk about this subject, all of whom over recent years have developed a business model on immersive entertainment, content and broadcasting and distribution, and they've got a different point of view, and that's why it's interesting to have them here today, and I'll endeavour so they can introduce each other one by one. So we'll start with Jean-Louis, if you want to start. Just a quick, tell about the company, but we'll come back to this later on. The roundtable will be on 2 points. The first point is on the business model side of things, when you're talking about the future, if there's a future, or what has been chosen by our guests, by our speakers, whether they have switched from one point to another, one moment to another. That's one of the first questions. The second one is on the content in itself. What is the future for content? Where should it be thought of for this sort of theatre? And we'll finish with a particular point on the question of sport and how this can be included. So, Jean-Louis, over to you. Well, hello, thank you for coming along. First of all, I'm Jean-Louis Boutinon, as it says here. I come from VRrOOm. We're 4 partners in the company. I come from the entertainment world before I did other stuff, but mainly from the entertainment world since 2014, and we work with Mr. K. We're associated on the idea of having a collaborative virtual experience. When we talk about collaborative, it doesn't mean common, it means real collaborative. The difference today, maybe I should start with this, is when you exchange objects in virtual reality. You were talking about the void. It's a virtual reality, common virtual reality project. We're all doing it together in the same room. We don't exchange the objects. So that's it. We're looking at diversity. We're looking at the player, the consumer in entertainment, and that's what makes everybody happy. That's what we're looking at too. So we started with the idea of saying that virtual reality can be a collaborative challenge, but as well as that, in the spirit of Escape Games, our game lasts about 40 minutes. Yes, 4 of you, maximum 2 to 4 people, and during the adventure you have to collaborate, you work together, exchange information. You see your avatars, you work on the progress of your adventure in our film. Now, that's the particularity. Today we've chosen development, which uses 2 means. We've got direct content, as you can see possibly on our website or on various maps. We're mainly based abroad, but in France as well. So we're involved either as a direct investor. We take shares in major cities. We're in Los Angeles, Sao Paulo, Sydney, Singapore, where we have between 20-25 spaces, maybe in 25 game areas, 2 to 4 people per game, so you can choose the number of players for each session. Or we sell licenses. So this is negotiated directly with us, where we give you the authorization for the game, and the hotline, debugging, maintenance, virtual security is not something that's fixed or established. There's always something to do. We're produced 100% within our company. We don't bring anything in from the outside, everything is made at home. So the first film, the first adventure, took us almost a year with 12 people. At the end of the year we're bringing out number 2, which will be available at the end of April. So we have 7 different languages. In Singapore, for instance, we recorded in Mandarin, but in English, German, French, Spanish, which helps export it and so that we can communicate throughout the world. Maybe we can have a quick look. Thank you. Who's coming next? So, Camille next. Well, hello, thank you for inviting me. Camille, Lopato. I founded Diversion cinéma 18 months ago. It's a company which is specialized in virtual reality exhibition and distribution. So our business model is based on two things. On B2B. We'll see that later on. So we opened our first cinema in 2016, January 2016, and in a place which was in the cellars of a restaurant, and it had 8 armchairs, 8 Samsung Gear headsets, and now we've got 2 cinemas in Europe, one in Paris at the Forum des Images, who we'd like to thank for welcoming us here every Saturday, and for welcoming the viewers who are coming in, the spectators. And we have a cinema which we opened in Rotterdam last December, and again virtual reality, which is in partnership with the local cinema, and at the weekend, and so they show our programs at the weekend. Now the idea, I come from the world of cinema. I worked for 8 years in traditional distribution. Today, well, the idea was to be able to provide an experience which is as inclusive as cinema is, so people who don't know anything about virtual reality can present themselves. They can come along and buy a ticket, even, it'll be something that won't be stressful. Now technology doesn't, mustn't be a barrier between the viewer, spectator and the film. So we've got control of our images. We've got control of masks at distance remotely, so that you can have children of 8 and grandmothers of 93. So we make sure that everybody can have a collective social event. The idea is that in the same way as in a traditional cinema, you buy your ticket to see the program, you go up at the given time, so the viewers come in, the spectators come in, we explain how it's all going to be. So you've got you've got the little button for the focus and everything with the mask. So people put on their masks. It's always a bit funny because you're in a configuration where you're sort of like an air hostess with the passengers who are ready to go off to another world. The passengers put on their masks. You press a button and then science begins for everybody. So that's a big advantage. There are 2 big advantages. First of all, everybody starts at the same time, finishes at the same time, so you can immediately share it, or at least in 99.9% of cases you feel people's enthusiasm, and then like in all experiences, when you're happy, you're even happier when you're sharing. So this it's a sort of satisfaction doing with somebody else. So it's not just what's going on in the mask, it's and the ritual, which is the before and after the immersion. Now the other advantage, maybe we'll talk about it later on, the other advantage is of course that we need fewer people to manage the bigger range of masks. When we started at the very beginning with in our cellar in the 11th arrondissement of Paris, there were 8 seats, 8 masks, 8 headsets, and there were 3 of us to try and make sure that 8 people could see the films. Now today, with 1 person, we can manage 20 people with sessions every hour. So it was necessary for us, because without that our business model wouldn't have worked. So that's where we are today. We are not going to be opening up lots of theatres around the world. We can talk about the business model afterwards, but Today we're opening up a department of international sales with a new recruit that's joining us called Pierre Bouchard. And we want to make sure that we can sell the film internationally. Thank you, Camille. The next person, Elisha Karmitz. So, hello. I'm called Elisha. I'm in charge of MK2 cinema. We've got two hats. We've got the cinema exhibition in Europe, and soon in Canada, and as well international production distribution of films. We've got an agency, a communication and marketing agency working with us, and they monitorize our audiences. We started in December 2016 in VR, and we do the normal things that MK2 does in cinema. We opened up a virtual reality area in MK2 Bibliothèque in 2016, and it's a room we've got a dozen or so headsets, and where you can see content, and you've never seen such stuff in terms of visual and narrative aspects. You've got films, documentaries, games, simulations, virtual reality simulators, a machine called Birdie, and you've got rowers, you've got the positron seat. We are exhibitors of VR. So we create programs, new concepts, a little concept for children called MK2 Kids. So we're going to bring this into the room, this experiment, this experience which has been going around the country. And as Pio said when we were developing our activity, it was always going to be very difficult internationally to open up the MK2 brand, because in the US notably the recognition is different, and there was operational efficiency, and a good part of our people like IMAX in the US and in China as well. There's a square meter you got to look at. There's all sorts of different parameters and people to manage them. And we saw that we were very efficient economically. So we're going to be putting everything into a product, which I think I talked about it here for the first time last year. We presented for the first time a few weeks ago MK2 or pod. So you can build a VR room or the library, but in this product it's for anybody, and the big difference with the Void is that you've got 2 million people but they're not necessarily going to buy it, but our product is accessible, anybody can buy it. So you can be a hospital, you can be a library, whatever, but and so it's a project that we sell. We are interactive people, and so we do these terminals, touch display terminals and things. We do this. We've got content and clearance, rights clearance, and so on. We have a selection of content. So all the contents on Steam or whatever is quite difficult to see. So we're going to have 50 to 60 elements. There's going to be a look of different genres and looking to the international. And this means that we'll be able to, that Paris is there for people who don't want to become specialists on VR but who want to be able to propose interactive games. So tomorrow it'll be immersible technology, And for all of this in parallel, we've got our structure of a big international team. So we'll come back on this on the business side. And final speaker, the founder of VRrOOm, Louis Cacciuttolo. So hello. So VRrOOm is a media platform created 18 months ago, but which is the sole platform for curating content, particularly for virtual reality and mixed reality, produced in 3 languages: Chinese, English, French. And this enabled us in a year and a half, just a year and a half, to have maintained an audience of almost 1.5 million people. So the idea behind VRrOOm, at the time I was working between Hong Kong and San Francisco for a company called THX, and THX were very well integrated into the cinema world, and I was often in San Francisco, based there, and I realized at the time that VR, the Silicon Valley, was the subject of the day, and it is today as well. It's one of the subjects, and it really made me it really fascinates me, and it really made me want to go off on this adventure. But what really struck me at the beginning was the lack of content, and particularly before that, the lack of information. So all these people know what VR is, but as soon as you leave into the centres d'images or whatever, when you go out, you know, if you ask people what VR is, nobody really knows. I'm saying nobody, but I think I'm exaggerating. But it's the first question that I ask when people ask me what I do. I say, well, I work in VR. Do you know what VR is? And 90 times out of 100 people say no. So that's what VRrOOm got into, to evangelize, raise awareness on VR, and democratize, and get the industry moving forward quicker. That's one of our missions now. Coming from the environment of cinema and creation, because I've got a centre in the south of France, I've got a theatre in the south of France, so that we can do experiments in VR. The distribution is something which is at the heart of our strategy. And yesterday, in fact, we launched an app which is called VRrOOm as well, which lists virtual reality festivals and social dimension ones. So you download the app, you've got an avatar in a virtual space which will enable you to see program and content in virtual reality. So for the time being, it's not interactive, it's narrative content. VR films, could as well be concerts and so on and so forth, because you can be several every day. You can talk about it with your friends and with your avatar. You can even meet people, and so people in the second part, which will be updated in June, you can be at a conference like the one today in a virtual space and even meet these speakers and so on. So that's a little overview of VRrOOm. And we are taking on board the darker rooms around the world, and from Beaumont we want to give them a proposition which can be supported by the virtual platform, and which will make it possible to have a network which is not only virtual but physical as well, with these LBE centres which are spread around the world but are not totally exploded. There are very few existing networks in the world apart from China, IMAX in the US, MP2, MK2, or VRrOOm, or Diversion cinema, but there's very few big international networks at the moment. which are organized at least, but there's lots of players who are independent and who need help. They need to find content, and very regularly to update their content and give new experiences to their audiences. That's why we set up the application.
So I'll be very brief because we carry out very much the same job with Louis, but you may be involved in this, is to spread the gospel to people in your environment around you. 5 years ago I founded a site called GoGlasses.fr. It was the Google Glasses and so on at the time, and then everything to do with virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality also, to understand what are going to be the different usages made of it, what are you going to be able to do with them, what are they going to be for, are you going to have the same usage with augmented and virtual reality. So that is to a certain extent what, as a media site, we are trying to look at and to think about these different modes. So if we move on now to after this presentation, let's move on to the question of the future. What does the future hold? And that's the construction, building of a business. So there are still questions around virtual reality as such. What type of business can it bring about with it? How can you approach virtual reality if you want to launch a business tomorrow? So there are 4 people who found ideas here with us, good ideas. And the concept is to try and understand and to ask each of them, what is the business model that they have chosen? We've already touched upon them to a certain extent with their presentations. Why did they choose that particular business model? And did you have issues, difficulties of finding what route you wanted to go to? Is that something that you had scheduled to do, that you had forecast? Why have you chosen? This is a question. Why did you choose your specific business model? For instance, for MK2, it was prolonging what you're already doing because you already have the MK2 as such. Well, the only thing that I could do, we do what we know how to do. We know how to have venues to present content. So our ideas in VR was not to treat VR as a new sector, but to integrate it into what we do and to work within that. It's a new medium. To show pictures, to show images. For us, everything we do, all the know-how that we have within MK2 and everything that's in VR2 is linked to that. Now with the development of that specific sector, what we are really based upon is to think that we had venues and a brand which is strong enough to be franchised throughout the world. And that we realized that would not be the case, that we couldn't base ourselves upon that to work in VR. So franchising, maybe selling and selling of operational modes, taking revenue for that, from that a percentage on the turnover, which is also a model which functions, of course, which works, but our idea was different. We understood that the Americans, it's not us that were going to we weren't going to take any percentage of their turnovers. We understood that rapidly, but we thought, well, there's a model within the business, within the movies business, where we could bring our intelligence, our ways of working to put it into product and commercialize the product and sell our know-how. So we have the know-how, and we wanted to apply that to VR. So that was our way of thinking. Jean-Louis, maybe? So there's a true question which arises there on the virtual world, because it was created from scratch. So everything needed to be created with VRrOOm from scratch. Everything needed to be put in place. Some major budgets right from the outset that you require. You were the first ones to launch in that sector in France. So nothing was sure that was it going to function. Was there a risk there? There were risks, clearly. How did you put that in the balance? Well, we started from scratch, as you say. It was an adventure, and as you said, in VR, there's no content. No content exists. There are two ways of acquiring content. Either you can buy it from Steam or Ubisoft, content which already exists in VR. So we show what they have, and we distribute what they have. But we thought if we want to have a niche, if we want to have we need to create our own content. So of course you start from scratch. Of course it takes a year. It costs a lot. But if you look throughout the world, as you said, Louis, there's not much exists. A lot of people talk about VR. When I see adverts on the TV for the 308 Peugeot, where the guy is driving or the girl is driving with VR headsets, I say, okay, people are trying to communicate around VR, but there's nothing that exists there. Where there are very few of us who've created content from scratch. Our objective is not to fight with Steam or Ubisoft or even MK2. They have a know-how that we'll never attain, but with our own content, if we have our own content, and that's why we've opened up in Los Angeles too, even if the Americans are not waiting for us for sure. We note that they have nothing either. They have AMAX, they have other content. In China there's content, but within their VR content, interactive, collaborative, in our niche, therefore, where people they're not spectators, and it's not interaction, but you're more in the world of action. It's not there's practically no content, so there are some players today who have arrived, and I say, well, that's all for the better, because we need competition and also for the product to get known, which is a niche of collaborative VR, and that is going to bring about other things, new ideas, new paths forward of development. We note that in particular in Los Angeles, we have a room on Hollywood Boulevard. We have 10 times more contacts than in France, because the Americans, they know how to do, but when they see a product that they're interested in, they know how to react, and they react very rapidly. So we're certainly looking to sign major contracts in the United States, thanks to the content, which what makes our strength is our production, which is 100% French. I'd like to underline that. Is that good? Do people like that? Yes, in America they like that French production, of course, visibly, but that doesn't mean that they're going to catch up with us, overtake us. Of course, they're all working towards that now. But today we want to believe in what we're doing. All our centers which have opened are making money. The economic model. We don't invest in equipment as opposed to the Void. We've bought headsets. So an issue is a cord today. It's going to become cordless tomorrow with the cordless headset per square meter. Of course, it's very complicated because we give 9 square meters per player, because we want to avoid motion sickness with inner ear and brain issues. So that's when you want to have 4 positions. We're at the Naval at the moment, but we can't pay the square meter as other booths are paying, and we took 50 square meters by being guests because we need space. We need space to show what we do. So we're Rue du Chemin Vert in Paris, not far from here. We have 8 posts, but if the square meter is so expensive in the center of Paris that it is a major economic issue. So today what you're saying is you want to associate a bit like a brother. It's a real estate project, really, whether it be immersive or not. It's a real estate project, and which needs to be built. Well, I have an STPN company, but we need to have a filling ratio which is maybe stronger than elsewhere. If we don't want to have if we want to have a price, it's 25 euros and 30 euros and full hours for 1 hour. So 30 euros per hour, and we really need to fill our venues, and our venues will only be filled if there is competition which arrives, and that's the case today. We're seeing it happen with 2 competitors who have opened very recently, which are quality competitors, and that is good for us because the market CPN started like that in 2013 with very few players involved, but except that the entry barrier is more technological as opposed to STPM. If somebody is really good technologically, you could open a 30 square meter venue with very clever tricks, technologically speaking, which were actually quite easy to do. But virtual reality today, the programming is much more complicated. So the market is going to spread, but not as fast. But having said that, people come and it's working. But if we compare that to a classic escape game, everything needs to be put away at the end. Here, for you just have to press on reset and the experience is relaunched, as opposed to escape games. So maybe you can have more people coming through. It's faster, because in escape game, with regard to profitability, you can imagine that in the midterm, that maybe you catch up the classical escape games. So everything stems from the content once again, because an escape game, of course, is much more expensive to implement, because you have to have the decor, because it comes from the world of theatre, I may say, from the stage. And here we're talking more cinema, from the film point of view. But what is expensive in virtual reality is not the structure itself. It can be the rent, and there are fewer people, it's fewer staff. But what is expensive is the content. So when we're selling licenses, we try and sell licenses to develop other adventures. So it's cheaper to install than the escape game. It's cheaper from an operational point of view, maybe more expensive per square meter, because you need more space for fewer players, and you have a rotation rate which is stronger, but the market is not as known, and so the fill-up rate, we're approximately between 30 and 40% after a first year of operating. What is expensive is bringing the content into the venues. Camille, maybe. Camille, can you tell us about what you were doing? You were saying, well, we started in the cellar of a restaurant. There are 8 chairs, and today there are much more. There's much more. You have a venue which is much bigger. So I can imagine that at the beginning it must have been quite complicated to see what was going to function, to work. The gear has evolved. The gear, there's a new version of gear. You're talking about something which is interesting. You've developed internally something which enables you to control all the gears at the same time, that which is not easy when you have to operate a venue. Is something that you wanted to do right from the start, immediately from the outset? Is it a solution which then you sell to other people, to other parties? Because I know, and because I have customer feedback that I've heard, there are solutions which people request and are looking for. So from a business point of view, could you tell us a bit more? Yes, absolutely, indeed. We started from scratch also, and with no money at all. So that was a major stumbling block, and we were depressed at the time. So we were not in a good state of mind. So now we're in December 2015. I'm talking December 2015 with my ex-partners for 18 months. We've been working on another project which didn't function, so I won't go into that. So in December 2015, we're depressed. We're depressed and we have no money. So it just so happened that we thought to ourselves, right, we need to get out of the office and find another project, because we need to move away from our VOD project and be inspired by what we see around us outside. And then we had a lunch. We were having lunches. We were spending our last few pennies on lunch, and we were having lunch with a friend of a friend of a friend of an ex-partner, and that was Antoine Tirol. And Antoine Tirol said to me, what's happening at the moment? This is what I'm doing. I'm producing a VR film. So we had a vague idea of what VR was, but we didn't really know much more than that. And he said to us, well, come to my office and I'll give you a headset. So we tried a headset on. We showed we saw an atrocious horror film, and we thought, well, this is fantastic. It's genius. We need to do something around that. Coming from the world of distribution, it appeared clear to us we're going to distribute VR films. Okay, fantastic. So, as we do in the cinema industry, it will be very simple. We'll buy some films and then we'll sell them on, as in the traditional cinema world. But so we're operators. There are no operators. Well, we'll become operators ourselves. So that is how it came about. And so we really brought together our last few euros, and we managed to buy an iMac, and for that was really the last hope, our last hope. And we launched the cinema in the cellar of a restaurant of a friend of a friend. Luckily that we have a good network of friends. And through Facebook posts, we managed to sell tickets, and that adventure in that cellar, it lasted It was a fantastic experience, but it lasted 2 months, 2.5 months, and we succeeded. We managed to be sold out, and it was on Wednesday and Thursdays. We had 4 sessions every time. So of course there's not a lot of people, but we were happy to see that we were selling tickets, and the people were happy. They were delighted, in spite of the fact that it was really the beginnings, because it was right at the outset of right, I'll start the film. Right, okay, here comes the film. Quickly put your headsets on now. Okay, it's the end. Quickly give your headset back. And then at the stage, a few people had masks had headsets in their hands. So they thought it was great. They found it normal that nothing was really functioning fantastically. But we found that that was not normal. We wanted to improve matters. And as I was saying previously, we needed to be three really on the ball. We needed to run from one spectator to the next to ensure that the film was launched as it should. So we thought, well, this can't function like this. We need to change. Of course, we're selling tickets, but if we want to make this better, bigger, there need to be more than 3 of us, and we need to have more headsets, and we need to have somewhere where we on the ground level. So internally, at that stage, we created software which enabled us to control the headsets remotely. It was very, very basic, I can tell you that, and it didn't really solve all the problems because some people were connected on Wi-Fi, some weren't, and so again, through the friend of a friend, we found a gallery, Rue de Turenne, which was empty. So we arrived there in July, and we could have 15 seats there, and it was our own space. So we wanted to know whether people would come for us or for VR. So we opened up that space mid-May, from Wednesday to Sunday. So many more sessions, many more seats, of course, and with our software, which enabled us with 15 people at the time, 15 spectators. To just be 2 people, which still remains a lot, and to have the session start at the same time, because the problem when we were in the cellar, some people were just starting the film as it was supposed to be finishing. So it was quite complex. So from an economic point of view, the fact that we could reduce staff and that we could take on more people, more players, that enabled us to get things more or less rolling. I say more or less because we made a bit of money with that operation, Rue de Turenne, but we weren't paying any rent, so of course that helps matters naturally. Then following on from that, several things occurred. In particular, I separated from my partners. We broke up. So in August 2016, Diversion was founded. So Diversion was founded, and for me, then I needed to find other partners who were ready to provide a venue for a virtual cinema, virtual reality, and it was here the Forum des Images who put at our disposal the space in partnership with the Forum des Images. So again, we weren't paying rent still, but however, in spite of that, and that is why I'm very curious to see some figures today, in spite of that, we have Saturday afternoon 6 sessions. We have one person from our side who's looking after this for 15 spectators, but everything's going well, and if everything goes as it should, we'll make a profit of between 120 and 150 euros. So we're not talking about, you need to bear that in mind, of course, that we're breaking even, we're not losing money anymore, but we're positive, but it's not fantastic, not a fantastic situation. So to come back to the economic model, the Diversion cinema, it's 2 things. It's a B2C, as I've just explained, but it's not with that you become rich. And it's also a B2B, so there is a balance which needs to be found. Well, actually, it's completely unbalanced because the B2B represents approximately 97% of our turnover. and 80% of our time. So B2C, 3% of our turnover and 20% of our time. So it's a major imbalance there. But having said that, B2C is something that we want to push forward, but we realize that the VR cinema model, such as we've been looking at it until today, is maybe not the right one, and we need to succeed in enabling that be a maximum of venues who are not VR venues, which are not VR venues, can offer their guests, their visitors, VR experiences, and offering also a virtual reality experience which is in coherence with the venue in which you find yourself. I'm thinking here about museums, about libraries, about media libraries, which again are not places which are specialized in VR. And for that we need to create, we thought, and we need to have the lowest tech hub as possible, which is plug and play, which can be autonomous, which can be rolled out anywhere and rapidly in any venue. So we're just moving away a bit from the cinema model such as we created it originally in January 2015. And what you see here today at the Forum de l'Image. So just to conclude, and that's a pity because we love that model, we find it fantastic, but if we can't find partners such as the Forum de l'Image, of course, who accommodate us, who help us with regard to communication, who back us up from that point of view, it's very complicated for us to create a venue, a space such as we had Rue de Turenne. Thank you, Camille. I think that what you said, it's absolutely the reality. We need to remind you of that, because everyone of that, because it's difficult for quite a few people who are still working in VR. And I've been in it for some years, and I think that it's people who are still believing in it and going with it, and it's fantastic to be able to. Yes, sorry, I just wanted to add one final element. We were talking about Samsung VR. Of course, that's amusing. It's an anecdote. As we're in France, of course, every time that we launch an entrepreneurship project, there's always a lot of people, a huge amount of people who will say, "Hey, this is a catastrophe. You're going straight into the wall with this. There's no way it's going to work." So regularly, every 2-3 months, we hear that. And so from January 2016, when we started to launch, we started to believe it ourselves that maybe we would last for 6 months. That these headsets that we bought with our last pennies, we knew that 6 months down the line everything would be dead. We'd have to throw everything away. But now, having said that, it's 2 years that we have the Samsung VR. But what I find very interesting is that now, in spite of everything, there's Oculus who's going to bring out a VR with it's Oculus Go, and everybody say, "Oh, fantastic, yes." So in reality, at the end of the day, that we wanted to be maybe too tech, too rapidly. We're a bit afraid, and to find the issues with regard to the economic model. So we're waiting now for the Oculus Go, and we believe that with that device, more venues will open up, maybe the headsets will be easier to get to function, and so probably there's a rosy future ahead of us. Very good. And so Louis, to finish, you, with regard to the business model, you were talking previously about double occupation of the venues with regard to the referencing of rooms, of venues. I was talking with VRrOOm, and there's another business model which is maybe more specific, which is quite different, which is a virtual venue through the application. So how does that go about? What are what modes of operation are envisaged at that level? Why have chosen to go down that route rather than open up physical venues? Well, to open up a physical venue, it is something that I attempted to do right at the beginning of VRrOOm, on the one hand because I'm quite in line with what Camille says with regard to that state of mind, which is to say it's fantastic to have a venue, to look after the people and to get them to live adventures, histories, stories, and to see that they're happy when they leave the room, that they've enjoyed their experience. But concretely speaking, I was a bit in the same case as Camille. It was not generating any money, and I didn't have any money, so it is very heavy from a budgetary point of view. So you have to find alternatives. So it's what Camille done with the B2B solutions. It's what we do with other solutions, such as one is that I'm about to talk about now. So those solutions, where there are a lot of problems that appear in VR. There's no content, or not content which renews itself sufficiently often. There are logistics issues. Myself, I am I'm especially convinced that at the beginning the ideal of the VRrOOm is to become a sort of a Netflix of VR, but we're far from it at the moment. All the more so since the people who have a VR headset, you count them on the fingers of one hand, if I may take that image. So B2C, the B2C model, the direct B2C model for a virtual platform is not, we'll have to wait at least 5 years, I believe, in the best of cases. So what do we do meanwhile, bearing in mind that I'm always gambling on this platform, this model of a virtual platform. So meanwhile, we need to go through location basis, and that is the B2B element of a component of VRrOOm with the creation of this application, and to putting together this network called Speeder, which counts now approximately 830 venues throughout the world that we've referenced with, that we haven't activated yet, but they know what we want to do and what we're about. And I think that between now and the end of the year we'll have 1,000 venues. It's to offer content that they can, which they can offer from where they are. So when you don't have content, when you don't have the rights of the content, when you have a venue yourself, what can you do? And that is where the idea stemmed from, of the application of virtual festival. The advantage of a festival is to put at the disposal of the festival an application which enables a festival to spread their influence, because the festivals at one stage, it's a bit like here, the day when this room is filled to capacity, when all the rooms are filled to capacity, well, the festival, well, it's reached its ceiling, or it needs to move elsewhere, or it needs to acquire new venues or find new venues. So the virtual reality is a new solution for the festivals to talk and to reach a wider public throughout the world. So festivals are potential customers. It's evidenced by our partnership with NewImages, and we're talking now with many other festivals throughout the world. And I'm not just talking about festivals, but cultural events generally speaking, whether that be in a very wide sense of the term, whether they be sports events, concerts, fashion shows. There is that demand which exists for these events which are limited physically, and they need to grow and to reach out to a wider public. So this virtual platform brings a beginning of an answer to that issue. So that's the first element, bearing in mind that in spite of a public that VRrOOm has built up, and a community that we've already built up of people who are specifically interested by VR, particularly interested by VR, and who you would think possess VR material. Not everybody's going to download the application to go to visit and so on, because you have to bear in mind that people who use a VR headset, they don't use it every day, and most of the time they buy it, they use it for a bit, and then they just put it in the cupboard, and it gathers dust. So that is what the reality is. So the true potential of VR is in location-based. So we have to have access to these platforms, and the Spider is going to be able to offer the content of this festival to those venues. That is to say that we'll be able to offer to the venues, if there's a festival, let's imagine Cannes or Sundance and so on. If those festivals are available on the VRrOOm platform, they will be able to be made available on the LBE platforms, which then that can solve a lot of problems at one fell swoop. That is to say, the problems that the consumers have, because either they don't have a headset to go and plug into these festivals and follow them, or maybe they do not have the right connection. For instance, previously our application was functioning perfectly when there were not that many people. Now there's a lot of people. We haven't got the connection functioning anymore, and it's not working. So it's in venues which are specialized, which are technically equipped, which are going to enable us to roll out these solutions for them to function, and with technological solutions which can also multiply the number of people who are going to be able to access to this content. The festival also is a solution with regard to this problems of content rights. The application works in streaming, functions in streaming, so there are no pirating issues. So that enables also, and the rights have already been negotiated by the festivals, so that enables the festivals, because all festivals try and have content which is extremely varied, that enables them also to renew the experiences rapidly and to bring new ones in. So our business model for the moment is B2B2C. Thank you. So I'll move on to the second part because from a time point of view, I think we need to move forward, and then if you have questions, we'll open the room up to those.
A question on what content. I call it ILB, Immersive Location-Based Entertainment. When you go to Disneyland, it's already LB. This is immersive. This corresponds more to what we wanted to do. So it's Lara Croft, the film that came out not long back. What they did, I mean, it's a blockbuster that comes out in several rooms or whatever. And if you looked as well on Oculus Store, you've got an experience with the Oculus Shop, you've got an experience accompanying the film. My question is whether they took a position on this continuity. The idea was to see whether there was a place where you can access which existed on content or the Viceport or whatever. This is an opinion which can be discussed, and maybe medium short term. Once you consider that people are going to be fitted out with VR headsets, what's the interest of going into a room which is going to be content that you can already have at home? That's the first thing. Or should you see this, particularly MK2, so already a cinema, have something immersive to have continuity, cinematographic continuity in the experience. You're going to see the film in 2D, and then you can go out and live the experience in VR. I was wondering in terms of content, what you envisaged, and whether it was one or the other. It's one and the other. And content that I haven't mentioned yet. Elisha? Just a few ideas on which govern the way that we think about the future of our activity. First of all, for us, VR isn't the continuity of cinema. Cinema is one thing, VR is different, and the best way to see a film is to go to the cinema. And in the VR room, for us, is that people do one or the other. It's not for the both. And when they come to do VR, they come to do VR. It's something which is different, and it's rare that they combine the two. Some people do, but that's not the purpose. It wasn't created with that in mind. Now, the question for us between games, immersive content, interactive content, what we're interested in is the content. It's the same, technology we don't care about. It's content, it's what authors have got to say. It's the vision they have of the world. It's the way in which they create and the way they create an immersive content and how it can contribute something. We've got the same thing in cinema, we've got the same thing everywhere. It's put our big, it's written big on our website, that's what we've been doing for 45 years, We don't want to make something new out of something old, So the question that you're raising is, it can be a challenge for VR. In fact, it has been since it was created. Is it an out-of-home business? Or is it an at-home business? Well, VR is financed because it's investors, particularly in the US and China, that are injecting a lot of money. There are companies injecting massive amounts. The first injection of money came with the idea that it was going to be massively spread out, and that the propagation of the headsets was going to be very fast. Now, a lot of people didn't think that, but nevertheless they injected a lot of money into it. And the reality is that the figures which are there, I mean, if you put yourself, and you look, you've just spent, you've got 1 million VR PlayStations, VR PlayStations, but it's nothing's microscopic. But people who are dealing with it, I mean, it's satisfactory, it's fine, everything's okay, but then you've got the whole of industry and even people who are there. You can say, well, in 2 years we've got business which is massive, and it's going to replace everything that's already existed, and it's going to be a gold rush, and but that's not the way it happens. Now you've got the work, it's a very competitive. The advantage of today being a small community, it's much more complicated than it seems. And of course, there's a business in out of home, and all the films that people see in cinema theatres, I mean, the reality is they can have it at home, they can pirate it 3 months, 6 months, later they can have it at home, depending on the chronology. It's often cheaper to get it at home than to go to the cinema to get it. And people still keep on going to the cinema. And today we're living in a market where there's 230 million people, or 200 million people who go to the cinema each year. You've got effects where there's this growth in the worldwide market, which is maybe drying up, but it's very worrying in the US what's happening. But when we look at that and we say, well, is it because people don't want to leave home because they've got Netflix? It's true that Netflix is a big challenger. The analogy, we talked about it a lot. It's an interesting subject, but for us, that's our vision. What's going to make people want to go is the whole of the experience. The content is the right place, the right time, the right experience. So the social aspect, yeah, of course, it's an experience, a social experience, but everything is, even sitting here is a social experience. There are two things for us which are aberrations. First of all, everything's an experience in life. Experience is time, space. Everybody lives an experience and is carried by space and time. Now, the principle of VR is to get out of this experience. To get out of your everyday problem of time and space. So it's a different experience. And your brain's going to believe it. Now, that's the magic of VR. But it's magic. I mean, it's just, the same way as cinema, seeing an animated image, seeing somebody on a screen and they appearing and disappearing and then being transported elsewhere. And then the experience is social because people are leaving home to see people that, are like them and share something with them. It can take any form. There's no given form. Business for entertainment is going to be totally changed, totally overthrown. I don't know how, what, why, whatever, but I've got intuition. We're interested in certain aspects. We do research, we look, we travel a lot. But today, somebody born in 2005, are they going to want to leave home when they're 20 and to spend 20 euros or 10 euros, and when he's 30 he's going to spend even more, and so on and so forth? I don't know. What's interesting is that we can imagine what it could be. What I think is that immersive is going to be a big share. After, there's going to be lots of other things too, but we're not futurists, we're not futurologists. But there we go.
Merci. Jean-Louis, du coup, sur VRrOOM, il y a une expérience que vous avez fait qui est unique.
And so you've done, and you did something in VRrOOM. I mean, you could have begun with that to get a bit more money to finance. Why? In fact, well, because there wasn't enough. The idea of existing content, that's what I was saying earlier on, is there's content which exists mainly with solo games or with collaborative games in a community sense. When you shoot at the target, you do something together like in the void, but collaborative virtual experience where you exchange objects and you work together on constructing an object or building something. This didn't exist, so you couldn't buy it, so we produced it from scratch.
Après, jeux VR ou cinéma ou dérivés sur le cinéma.
VR, derivative, whatever, we don't know. We look at the reactions of our people. What we have seen is that people, when they leave home to go to the cinema, whether it's for VR images in other theatres and festivals, they're amazed. Well, it's because they haven't got anything anterior, they haven't seen anything before. The world of VR, you were saying, Louis, today. I mean, you know, who's going to put on a headset? Nobody. You know, if you want to buy one, you ring up the shop and they've only got 3. You've got to go to send to Taiwan to get them. Now the world of games is going to be a way of communicating for us. We've focused on the fact that if we develop a product where people can play at home, it's going to be the problem with the video club. People are going to buy it at the same time. Cinema's doing fine. So we said, well, we prefer to have an experience where people say, like skate games, they come to do something together. It's you know, a way of getting out. That's the first thing. It's an ongoing battle. We haven't won yet, but financially it's becoming complicated. So we've got to find the money, but to do that we've got to be visible. You know, we'll go to Los Angeles on the 4th or 5th of May. We've got to find the money. And then there's a second thing which can happen, is we've already been contacted in the US, that's why we're talking about it on with Elisha. The Americans are very reactive. There's a big blockbuster coming out next year. People asked us if we couldn't, so they wanted an estimate to see whether we could do something interactive, which is the sort of a pre-launch of the film. There's going to be use of VR, cinematographic support, maybe the model of the cinema model, where you just got films today, an average 1 hour 30, 1 hour 45 is long. Maybe you can have cinema which should only be 50 minutes long, where people will have much more interactivity that they've got today. And you know, you put the goggles on. People, I mean, I don't think the films last an hour and a half. It's shorter than that. So maybe the cinema of the big media, or the big film producers, maybe will be moving towards that. Elisha talk about cinema better than I can, but there is this feeling as well that maybe we're going to cut things to 40, 50 minutes in the cinema, but where people are not just there as viewers passively. We want to get them into the story with we've seen that in theme parks and the Futuroscope and things like this. So maybe that's the form of cinema of tomorrow. It's not our business. We've got an approach there because we've done interactivity and collaborative work. And the outlines very clearly are across the Atlantic. So not in France. So I mean, you know, everybody says you're going to get it wrong. We've got 2 years of possibilities today, despite everything. There's this adventure that some people have seen already, and the second's coming out at the end of the month. Louis as well. So it was to say, we've got a first film, 40-45 minutes, for people who've never done VR. The idea is to evangelize to whatever, so for pure gamers, but to say, yeah, okay, but it's the same codes as gaming, it's a little blue light. The second film, there are pro gamers that we've got, and they haven't finished the game yet. And the thing is, you know, 12 to 92. You know, anybody can do this. The mission today for people who are more gamer, we try to make it a bit harder. We want to go backpedal a bit because people, we can't get it, so we've got to find the balance there. And we've got to give immersion, we've got to give fun. People have got to enjoy it. You know, it's our first target. So if at least there were things, because people have imagined that we could do something else. I mean, last year we had a roadshow with a big French bank where there were 17 stages in French universities, and so there was a film and on the moon, so we had the whole part on the moon, and the bank of the future, and we had a roadshow around universities, so there were 4 stations there. The students could play free, and that's what the bank was paying for it, so there are things there. Just the game, but you can have as well ideas on cinema. Camille,
en termes de contenu, tu es surtout sur du film 360 puisque tu es avec les gears.
You're in 360.
Si je ne me trompe pas de HTC Vive.
HTC Vive. Oculus, the idea is to stay on the type of content in 360 film because it's a specific outlet. No, for we haven't got any room scale. It's because we can't get the business model to work on that. That's why we we decided not to lose money. But in B2C, there's no room scale experience, but we have got room scale for B2B, which gets us going around festivals. We've got VR cinema and room scale. So what we can do is, what we can't do is make money out of it. So that said, today we will find a solution to get the balance. We'll do it because, but it's a bit complicated. So I don't know if we really answered the question yet.
Louis, peut-être, pour terminer sur ce point,
to finish on this, on content with your application Spire.
L'application c'est VRrOOm. D'accord. Justement, qu'est-ce que tu envisages de...
So what are you planning on doing as content? The things that exist, that you want to create with other partners. How do you see that? Well, we're going to begin with festivals. There'll be non-interactive content, and with technology, because things are evolving so fast, there are things that are possible today with which just weren't possible before. There's the green web that's coming. It's going to be very important for us in particular. Everything is possible given that for the time being. We're really at the very beginnings of what's interactive, immersive. It's not a priority, but it's something that we've got in mind, like you. And above all, VR has got to be interactive. So we're looking forward to it being possible. So final subject, but I think time-wise we're going to be really short. What we're going to do is, have you got any questions? And so we'll take the questions. Just a question. I want to get you to react about what we could have 4 or 5 years ago. We've been talked about stereoscopy and 3D, stereoscopic 3D, which didn't really succeed. Aren't you afraid it's going to be a similar effect with VR? It's more a question to get you to react. I understood very well what Elisha said. Well, stereo 3D is something that You know, we brought out one of the first stereo 3D films in France. It was called Fly Me to the Moon. It's not the best film, okay, but stereo 3D in relation to the cinema. There's a difference of degree of interactivity and the image that comes out of the screen. Now, with virtual reality and cinema, there's a difference in nature, it's a different type of things, and it's the way your brain sees the image and transmits this to your body. Now, you're getting out of the difference of degree, so by definition we're in something which is different. Now, how can this, this is for the theoretical part. Now, for the concrete business part, what didn't work with stereo 3D? Well, there was a lot of investment, massive investment. A lot of money was made, but the American studios, IMAX, and in big parts as well, wanted to get easy money. They invested a lot, but they brought up their prices a lot, and they dropped production quality. So people went to see Avatar in 3D. Even today, they're thrilled to see in 3D, going to see films, which really deserve it. But paying €3 extra, something that was better in non-3D, they get annoyed, and so they see it once, they see it twice, and then they'll give up. So us, as exhibitors, we were obliged by the American studios to show it, even if people don't watch it. So the audiences got fed up of it. So giving broadcasting standards which we consider as being there, and select content that is qualitative, and so that we're building a market and trying not put people off. Is that going to happen? I have no idea. Is immersive technology everywhere? It's going to be there, but it'll depend on the quality of the business. It'll depend on of what we will do with it, because there's no pre-established model. But there's a difference in nature, which has got nothing to do with this stereoscopic 3D effect and what we've got today with VR. That's the difference, which is what people see as well. They understand it's different, and they can see that what happened with 3D is a business. It was we're afraid it could happen in VR if we make the same mistakes. But I think people have understood, and there we go. Any other questions?
audiovisuel au bureau français de Taipei, donc à Taïwan. Déjà, j'ai une anecdote par rapport à ce que disait Camille tout à l'heure par rapport à la technologie. C'est vraiment quelque chose qu'on s'est pris en pleine face quand on a commencé à travailler sur les questions de promotion des contenus nouveaux.
So we're looking at promoting, I work in Taiwan, so we're looking at bringing out French content in Taiwan, and people said that your content is original and fine for festivals, but if it's not exclusive, HTC5 or... We've got the best headsets, we've got the best tracking system, we've got the best room scaling. So we're not interested. And at the end of the day, the switch came because, people could do things with cardboard and whatever, and the mobile phone. They found it was just as good. And these are the questions that we're looking at a great deal, and our partners are looking for French content and expertise. So it's very interesting to see that there is difficulty talking about other things than technology. And so we're talking about it in Taiwan, but not much about content. The question I had is the place in Taiwan. There are places for VR stuff.
Viveland, donc des salles
There's Viveland,
technologie exclusive,
exclusive technology, HTC5.
dans le divertissement. Et donc, ce qu'on essaie de valoriser,
And so what we're trying to
modèles qui sont
see is there are other models.
forcément mieux. On parle évidemment de MK2VR.
We talk about MK2VR,
Sur le modèle de MK2VR, c'est un
and
modèle très proche de l'exploitation cinématographique
it's
traditionnelle. Il y a une vraie question de
there's a real
programmation.
question of programming.
Ce que je trouve assez intéressant, c'est qu'il n'y a pas de
What's very interesting is there's no exclusive technology.
HTC Oculus. Mais c'est un petit peu entre les deux.
But I mean, it's a bit between the two.
Vous voyez un modèle qui va plus
Do you think there's a model that's going to be more focused on
cinématographique traditionnel avec
traditional cinema
sur ce même modèle,
with the same model? For instance, earning sharing, or do you think more a model that's going to be entertainment, pure entertainment, with purchasing of licenses, and which is going to move away from the traditional distribution exhibition cycle? Well, it's going to be both. I think there's no. There are people who want to go to one business model or the other, but there's interest in the market to go towards both. Camille? Yeah, I agree. Well, that's clear.
Je peux peut-être ajouter que le marché est suffisamment inconnu et ouvert
The market is
pour que
open to all unknown to as well. 99.9% of people haven't done VR. You know, they can go to places where there is VR. They can go to festivals. They can in places like VRrOOm or whatever. I think the aim is to get people to understand that VR works. That us, for instance, we work with HTC Vive. It's because they give us the best satisfaction in terms of appearance and rendering and so on. It's more expensive. We didn't choose that, you know, because we want to spend money. Unfortunately, today, and if tomorrow another big brand comes out from France, say, or from Europe, and they half the price, of course, we'd be happy to go to it. And I think there are some going to be coming out, but our aim isn't to propagate HTC 5. They're losing money every day. They're not giving us any special prices. And I can say that even to have 2% reduction is really difficult, and even worse than that. We took business decisions, first of all, 50% more to have the maintenance service, but when you've got when you've got a bit of sweat that goes in there, they say, well, you've dipped it in water. So, we want technique to help us. I know we take the basic one because our core business is content. We do it like cinema. We've got people who do the lighting. We've got people who do the sets, who write the scripts. And so it's an adventure. It's a game, but you've got to build it. You just don't go off like this saying, oh, we've got no idea what's going on. So we want technology to help us, and so that we can distribute it much cheaper, even if 25-30 euros. It's the price of an escape game. Well, thank you all. I can see that we're very late. Thank you all very much for coming along, for asking you questions, and for staying. I think that you can give a round of applause to the speakers. Thank you very much, and the festival NewImages, which is going on with the other conferences. Thank you. Have a good day.